5. Fellas. All right, I think this is it. I've been looking through my list of MidsWatches, and if you guys have been here, it's been like 114 episodes. Congratulations. You've made it to the end. Um, yeah. So I originally have a list of about 120 different subjects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 11 more. The problem with these last few is that it's very hard to make them a narrative because there's like 3 or 4 posts that fit into a singular point, and it's fairly lengthy, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't matter. So I'm going to try my best to navigate this stuff and get the footage for the last few MidsWatch episodes. And then that's it for the channel. I'm out of red pill content. I think I have like a half a dozen sidebar things that I have to get around to that I'm not looking forward to. I eventually have to get through Dr. Sean Smith's book, which they've added to the sidebar, and he's not a big fan of me, so I'm like, let's give it some time so I don't accidentally pepper that with like shit posting on him. And yeah, so there's 3 more posts too. They're rather large. They're talking about dread, subreddit fragmentation, and the 3 drunken captains. I don't think it's valuable to make an entire post on that because I did write books on it, which kind of sums it up. So I think this is going to be it. But if you've been around for this entire journey, congratulations. Oh no, Patreon's still going to be there. Don't worry about that. Oh, remember that time Couch started a new channel, his 3rd video it can get monetized. I'm having some copyright battles with the Italian company right now. I thought it was fair use, but they disagree, and YouTube really doesn't favor the creator, so I did some disputes, and I don't know, I might have won, but at the same time, it looks like I win this one, but they can just come back and strike it again. So what I'm going to do is go back to the editing board, and I'll probably I'm not sure how much I can alter it to ensure fair use, but I'm going to give it a shot. Anyways, we're still moving on. Also, the channel's not monetized yet, but thank you very much for talking your shit, bro. All right, live chat. This is the last. Dawn seems like yesterday. How long did it take? Well, it's not going to be the last video on the channel. It'll just be the last of the red pill stuff. I most likely will switch back to doing either the old cooking videos or the old red pilled coffees that I used to like doing. And you're going to see in here too, there's some reasons that I kind of want to walk away from going too hardcore with the red pill branding, but you'll see what I'm talking about inside of here. Dude, I read your book because my friend was telling me about his sexless marriage, and I did a lot of game 10 years ago and I got interested. Oh, that's good. Hopefully it benefited you. Like I said, it's most of the stuff that we're getting here has been researched for the book, so you're kind of seeing the very messy material that got us there. Love the books, helped a lot. Well, that's good. Like I said, I'd love to take credit, but there is hundreds of guys who did all the work, and I merely wrote it down before the internet got rid of it. Okay, so what do I got here as a list? The first one, my wife told me I'm horrible in bed and childish for feeling emasculated. And this is the one on... Oh yeah, the one with a girl that that threatened to unalive herself. You know what? That kind of goes with the battle. Okay, so there's one where this girl's threatening to off herself if her husband doesn't do what she wants, which leads into the battle of who could care less. And this is more us having some navel, like, what are we doing here? Like that kind of navel gazing, which then leads into not that one. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. One of my old posts about turning off your brain. Which, I can't even read my old stuff. I look at it and I was just like, oh my god, this is like unintelligible. How did anybody know what I was talking about back then? Because I didn't know. Like, I read it now, it's like 4 sentences happening in parallel. I don't know how I got past it. Anyways, oh, here we go. Heartfelt, aggravator, new today, be great. Coach Coach live stream MidsWatch. What direction we take the channel off the red pill? Well, there's still going to be red pill content, but it's just gonna. You know what? Here, when we get by the time you're done here, you'll know what I'm talking about. Okay, there we go. So it's the dude whose wife threatened to off herself if he doesn't fix it. Switched over to the battle who could care less, and this is more about us being a bunch of big dripping vaginas, and the self reflection we've had on that. And then two posts of mine, which are mostly just because of an escalation between me and Jack Ten of Hearts on a fundamental approach to how you red pill yourself and others. My posts aren't important. It's more so the dialogue that happens afterwards here, which is funny because now when you see me like throwing goatsy on anybody on Twitter who starts to argue with me, I'm like, I've been in the trenches. Like I've had good arguments. Like this is, you'll see. Like, oh, I see why he's over it. It's like, yeah, I'm not having this argument again. Anyways, then it follows up with the plea for irrational confidence, which culminates in... Where in the hell did I put it? Oh, did I lose it? I just had the damn thing. It was a post about guy who's like, hey, if... Oh, there it is. Stayed with her infidelity. I think it's this one. Okay. I'm trying to order them so that way we have like a structured thing. Yeah, guys who stuck around after their wife cheated on them. And this one's fun because I've talked about Ultimate Cad in a lot of the books and that too, and it's kind of his origin story. So yeah. And then I was like, fuck, I couldn't believe I found that while I was looking for something else. I was looking for this for like years. So it'll be kind of neat to see what it is that drives a man to a thing. Although, and here's the problem, right? So those four are essentially an argument over whether, like, how does one go about unplugging? And in the middle of it is an origin story of a guy and what it is that drives a man to be all sorts of like cheating, infidelity, that stuff. He's kind of been like a long running thing. So I got two stories in this one, and I kind of want to split them up because the CAD thing is worth it. CAD thing is worth it, but at the same time, it's also the way down at the bottom. Gee, I'm not reading all of this. Fuck that. But it's also the punchline to about 114 episodes. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do that. I might just put it out there and like, you know what? You guys watch it. You'll figure it out. Anyways, then after that, we got some singles. I'll probably start with the singles because they're easier. Married Friends. The go-to or get a glass of water for me, the shit test. And then a guy asking if he went too fast and went Rambo on his dread. This guy here, which one is this one? Oh yeah, this is the... I'm not even sure what the point of this one is. What do I have it listed as? Hard work, hard work. Oh, that is the list of it. Damn it. It's essentially a guy's not really doing well, but he's not self-aware enough to know it. It's kind of another Rambo post. And then the last one. Oh, yeah. Why the red pill women hate married red pill, or why the red pill hates the married red pill, and why everybody failed a giant shit test. Yeah, this one's good. All right. You know, I'm going to start with this one because this one's fun. Where's my chat? I don't want to lose you guys here. Been a minute, yeah. What's up, guys? Yeah, T-Rex Army, all the works. There's no glim and glamour on this one. This is strictly just like balls to the wall, dialogue heavy Quentin Tarantino. So let me see if I do this one. Sexual strategy, red pill things, red pill this, red pill get the hate. You got shit tested by the red pill women. Yeah, and the ultimate point of it is just if you base yourself on an identity, you're going to get judged by its worst actors. It's a bit on the lengthy side, but you know what? I think you guys are worth it. Heck with it. Oh wait, let me get that line right when I start this off. Where'd it go? Oh, Hunter's in there too. That's too funny. All right, fuck it. Let's do it live. So when you base yourself off an identity, you're going to get judged by the worst actors in that identity. Or let's change that up. I don't like that start at all. I know I can make that less clunky. When you join a group, just be aware you're going to be judged by the worst members of that group. That's how identity politics works. Hello, fellas. It is MidsWatch. We're on, I don't even know what episode is now, 100 and something. We're nearing the end, though. I've got maybe half a dozen of these left, so if you're catching this, it's either the last episode or one of the last episodes. And this one's kind of, it's a meta. I don't think it's going to matter as much for your marriage or your sex life, but it is a good example of frame. And it's kind of one of those things that comes up, like you're in a space, you're swapping notes with other men. Eventually, if you get enough guys together and make something popular enough, which is not doesn't need to be very popular, you're going to get the attention of women. And that's when all of this BS starts. So I guess you could use this as a metaphor for when you start doing co-ed things with your married friends, like dinner parties or joining a club. They start invading women in the space. And I would ask you, if you can remember, to go back to the male social matrix. I know I got a video on here on it. If not, there's the original essay from it. If I can remember, I'll put it in the description. But I mean, you'll be able to follow along well enough. So this was an editorial by the Red Pill Alternative 42, which is old member, not important. Why the red-pilled women hate married red pill, or how all of you failed, a large-scale fitness test inspired by the recent thread and blue-pilled professor's subsequent meltdown. What does all that stuff mean? The red pill women was, like back then, it was a lot of guys had their blogs. That was like the first iteration of red pill. And then everybody who didn't have enough for their own blog would come to the subreddit, which was made, it's about 2012, 2013. And everybody was swapping notes there. It was a great time. A bunch of branches came out. So there was the red pill originally. And then married guys were tired of hearing, just next your wife and kids. So they made the married red pill. And then a bunch of women who were dating some of the senior red pill guys, they wanted to make a red pill women. How can I get you there too? There was a bunch of girls there, and they eventually started talking about race realism and class warfare. And for some reason, that's every time a girl tries to red pill, they always end up going towards race realism and social classes. It's every time. It turns into a Jane Austen novel, and I don't understand it, but it is. There was also a place called Purple Pill Debate, and this was just where the idea was supposed to be we come together and start swapping notes with women, but it very quickly turned into crapping on red pill guys. Anybody who knew what they were talking about got kicked out. Anybody who was a nice laughing stock got stuck around to be a lolcow. And what's a lolcow? It's a clown. It's essentially a clown. So there was this beef that started. I don't remember what the issue was. I think there'll be some hints at it here. Essentially, the red-pilled women got mad at the married red pill guys. The married red pill or the red pill women had a temper tantrum and kicked everybody out, deleted all of their content. And that's why most of the really good red pilled women stuff is gone. Women had a temper tantrum thinking that it was some kind of power play. They deleted everything, they removed everything, and it basically nuked it from orbit. So this is coming right out of the tail end of that. Again, metaphor for your life. We just finished a round of dread. My wife and I are back together and we're going to our first dinner party. Think of it from that context. So we use the term red pill as a sort of in-joke waking up to a system of lies, as like in the Matrix. We also use the term red pill to refer to a man who is aware of the system and has woken up. These are fine, at first. Later, I've come to know that the red pill is just a term for a very specific sexual strategy. The red pill subreddit that started it all is literally discussion of sexual strategy in a culture increasingly lacking a positive identity for men. Rule 0. And then there's the married red pill. Same sexual strategy, but for men in marriages. To the boys in the red pill, married red pill is anathema to the system of apraxeology. The red pill eschews marriages. Unsurprisingly, married red pill generally eschews them too. In fact, I'd go so far to say is that if married red pill men were to get divorced, they would not get married again. I'd go even further to say if that we were to do it all over again, and married red pill men would probably have never gotten married in the first place. Which is actually fundamentally true, as much as official stance comes. Not pro-marriage, anti-divorce grape. So that's the red pill for men. Execute a sexual strategy that maximizes sexual success for the man. Marriage tends to counteract that maximization of sexual success. Success, for men in a red pill sense, is as many sexual partners as possible. The long game may be to find a virtuous woman from who he finds pleasure with both sexually and companionship, and then have some kids. Legitimately, even a red pill guy has some realistic ideal as to the nature of a man's true biological process. A lot of words to say, you make your own goals. Marriage doesn't play into that. It provides no sexual success to men and is prohibitive. I'm not going to get into that again. If you've been around this space, you've heard the very well thought out or deranged anti-marriage screed. And I agree. It's a very bad deal for men from a strategy standpoint. It is taking an L. On top of that, there is this odd little subreddit called the Red Pilled Women. One may wonder why they refer to themselves when red pill when they're women. But remember, it's just an interchangeable term for sexual strategy. In their case, the sexual strategy for chicks. A man strives to be the top 20% or better of men in order to attract and keep as many women as possible for the purposes of sexual access. His strategy is a singular one. Women, on the other hand, are dualistic. Being the gatekeepers of sex and the bearers of children, she wants the best possible genetics for the strongest possible child while also procuring as much resources as possible in order to ensure that child's survival and thriving. The red pill refers to this as alpha fucks, beta bucks. Doesn't it sound excessively intellectual for talking about our dicks? I agree. And I'm just preaching to the choir here. We all know this stuff, but we seem to forget it from time to time. And I have to specify these things in order to make what I'm about to say clear. Red pill women are red pill through and through. Their advice is geared towards finding the best scenario for child production and child rearing. But while the red pill speaks about this stuff very overtly, red pill women are much covert about it, soft even. They won't come out and say it, but they will infer it. And they clearly dislike the married red pill as a whole, though they seem to, at least, not hate the normal red pill subreddit. But why? The same mindset. And the married red pill should look better, as it's about a man being a good husband, and the red pill is about, well, nothing to do with marriage. So why the love for the one and the hate for the other? It's simple. The married red pill disrupts the dualistic mating strategy the women thought she was successful with. We take that provider guy who's locked down in a marriage and mold him into the lover archetype. She didn't want to marry that guy. She didn't want to marry a man who has options with younger and hotter women that are attracted to, because, oh my God, women like the idea of that comfort. So why doesn't TRP get this hate? It's easy. They have ultimately filtered themselves from the pool of marryable men by identifying themselves as both men who won't marry and men who say they don't want to marry. And why don't they want to marry them anyways? Because they see these guys as they see us. Men who aren't truly top tier, alpha male if you want to call it that, but it's kind of goofy. But they're trying. Basically liars. They want a man that just gets it. And the fact that you have to read it on a forum means you ultimately don't. Which, it's a fundamental misunderstanding of how things work. It's a skill like any other. You learn it by learning it. Where you learn it doesn't really matter. So in short, every issue they have with the married red pill space, the faking and the lying about not being a provider, leads them to assess that this is exactly what the red pill women are doing. Pretending to be a high value woman who has trying to marry down. Essentially, it's like we're projecting. He's got a whole lot of words in this, so I'm kind of skipping a lot of it. But anyways, you all, and this is by us, including me, this is me back then doing the arguing on the internet thing, you all got shit tested by the red pill women and then decided to argue about it with them. You failed a large-scale shit test. Red pill women are red pill. They're just not our red pill. A woman's strategy is at odds with our strategy. They have to be adversarial, which is true. And until you're having sex, the red pill women should be disregarded in the same way you would disregard any woman or any group throwing shit tests, agree and amplify, and fogging with a high helping of amuse mastery. That's the first half. So to sum up, married red pill women really hate the married red pill guys because we are anathema to their strategy. The idea is the red pill, though, they're not really seen as like a threat in this same internet arguing way. It's just a bunch of single guys that promise they're never going to get married. So they think, well, whatever, I don't want you anyway. But the married red pill one, these are married guys and they're actively working against it. So they get mad and then we take the bait and then we end up looking like a bunch of, beta male husbands. You get the idea. It's completely a waste of time. And the big lesson to take from that first part is don't argue with women about this stuff. Don't act, do. And we know that. And that's the worst part. We knew it, but we still did it. And that's why there's a difference between knowing the path and walking the path. And it's why I don't, if somebody's trying in earnest when they make these very obvious mistakes, yeah, I'll point it out. But you can't be too hard on the guy. Like it's in our DNA to want to argue our point and make sure we're right and use logic. And it takes a lot of work to completely shed that from your system. And it's never truly gone. We just get very good at identifying it. For example, I talk about the learning process for unplugging guys. It's at first you screw up and you have no idea what happened. Then you start to learn what happened. And then you screw up, and then afterwards you're like, oh, I did this. You know why you screwed up. Then from after there, you practice a little more. The next step is you're screwing up, but you stop yourself right in the middle of screwing up and you reset. And you're like, all right, you know what? Never mind. Next step after that, you catch yourself just before you start screwing up, and then you don't. And then the last step is you just don't screw up anymore. And this is ultimately where this whole little argument with a bunch of chicks online came from, is a bunch of us like, all right, we don't screw up anymore. But then we realize we're not quite there yet. We're still catching ourselves in the middle of a screw up. But hey, that was 8 years ago. So if you're still doing that now, I don't know what to tell you. So Jack Ten of Hearts chimes in, and he has an alternative theory to this, which I actually kind of agree with. So I don't think that's why this is. I don't think this is some existential issue. They just cherry pick the retards here who hit on cashiers to make their wives feel dread, and then whine that everything here doesn't work. And every subreddit in question, every media publication, and there's been a lot of like Forbes and Daily Beast, all kinds of like mainstream media articles are written about it. They've actually got, if you look up Married Red Pill online, the first thing that pops up is somebody else's SEO article about how we're horrible people. So like it's there. It's not just some small niche thing. Anyway, so everybody that craps on us, there's the red pill, the blue pill, purple pill debate, the red pill women, whatever. I think this is the root cause and not some sort of cognitive dissonance because what we say violates their own core principle beliefs. Now, I know there's a lot of married red pill guys who have been here for a while and think the red pill made them better men in any paradigm that you want to use. And they can rebuild that for other men, and other men are just retards and don't do it right. But here's the thing. Nobody gives a shit about that. Nobody cares. Why? Because fundamentally, an organization is often judged by their worst actors. That's just how it goes. And if the other members try to disown those actors, then it's impossible to do that without being countered that you're making a no true Scotsman argument. This is especially true if the organization doesn't have a singular leader. Like is there a Black Lives Matter thought leader? Not really. There definitely isn't an equivalent to Martin Luther King. So when some black guy kills 2 cops in New York City, was that an action condoned by Black Lives Matter? And he has an article linking to it that shows these kind of arguments and why they always seem weird. So without a singular thought leader to say, no, what the fuck, we protest this kind of stuff, but we will not ever condone this behavior, then it doesn't matter. Because it's not just that guy who shot the police, but it's enough other members on, the Twitter saying, yeah, they had it coming, blah, blah, blah. Conversely, the guy Robert Deere, who shot up a Planned Parenthood center a few months ago, is going to be attached to the pro-life movement in the same way. There are enough pro-life nutbags that actually condone this shit that there's no singular thought leader to say, no, wait, this is not us and this is not what we do. Or you see some public opinions towards Muslims. Why don't more Muslims condemn ISIS? Oh, they do, and pretty much constantly, but it's a religion of 1.6 billion people, so no imam or sheikh or other leader can arguably speak for all of them. Would it be great if there was a Muslim pope who could say they aren't Muslims and actually they'll burn in hell? That would probably stop most people from getting angry and yelling, every Muslim's a terrorist, at random town meetings over building permits. But there isn't, so this happens. And what that poor fucking guy presenting his plans for the building permits is supposed to say? He sounds just as inept as Blue Pill Professor does trying to defend the married red pill to anyone. This is why nobody gets a shit. Nobody gives a shit. He actually references here Hunter Drew at the time he was called the Family Alpha, though. So he's like, I'm going to page the Family Alpha because I think he realized this a long time ago if his content is going to go anywhere. Hasn't. The Red Pill brand is fucking deadweight anchor more than anything. If you strip down the unapologetically masculine tone from his blog, I think you'd find his content actually overlapped a lot more with the Promise Keepers or the Good Man Project than anything on the Red Pill subreddit. That take aged very well. What I think is a great and much needed niche in the modern world of marital advice for all the Evo Psych stuff that the Red Pill likes to promote, classic evil Evo Psych would describe to all men as being compelled to spread our seed. It's a very red pill thing to want to have kids, right? How could it not be, according to Evo Psych, blah, 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 blah. So, on that premise, since all of our social and legal structures are optimized for having kids in the context of legal marriage, and since the entirety of the red pill advice stops somewhere around have a vasectomy and spin plates, well, it seems very fucking clear that there's a need to extend and adapt this school of thought into modern marital life, even if it means contradicting the core praxeology from which it evolved. And this is why everybody is destined to hate us. We have to contradict TRP, because by definition, being pure red pill and successfully raising offspring is contradictory. So that's why they hate us. And yet these contradictions won't be clear to all the chicks or anybody else who's arguing or predisposed to hate us. We have no singular thought leader to make these contradictions and distinctions clear. The married red pill moderators might be the closest thing, but even they don't speak for all of us. I'm going to take a pause here because this goes on for a little bit more. And I'll see if I can sum it up as best I can here. Jack's point is that because the red pill, like what we know of as the red pill, it's a very loose, unstructured, ad hoc grouping of people. There is no leadership. There's no hierarchy. It's very similar to all the other things you've seen pop up in the last 20 years. That's like Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, the Tea Party, like any loose-fitting organization. ISIS. Not saying we're that, but you know. And the military's had the same problem. The military's always had, like, if you screw up in uniform, you didn't screw up. The military screwed up. You'll always be associated with whatever group you're attached to. And that's just a fundamental part of it. And when there's nobody to say, no, he's not part of it, then ultimately you're stuck in this place where you get to be judged by your worst actors. And that's true. The people that agree with you are already part of it. The people that don't agree with you will find, and if you're of any size, you're going to have one idiot. Like, look, right now I got Myron Gaines running his mouth about Red Bulls and the newest iPhone and hoes and whatever. And he's out there and I could sit here and tell you, oh, he's not real red pill, but like, who the fuck am I to say? And who the fuck is he to say he's not? It's the nature of the beast. This place will never be attractive. And if you're of any size, there's always going to be some idiot out there. The problem is that in order to have an idea of a red pill within a relationship, it's fundamentally against a pure distilling of red pill. The idea of red pill is it just takes the evolutionary psych thing that guys just want to, RK selection thing, knock up as many women as possible, which, fine, whatever. You can have that as your goal if you want to. It's not my place to judge. But if you are going to use the same praxeology within a relationship, you have to admit that there's a bit of a contradiction there, especially since most child rearing scenarios here are more legal status. Like marriage isn't even a contract. It's a legal status. And for most women, you're not going to have kids unless you're within a legal marriage, or in the case of Canada, common law now. Like most people I know aren't married. They're common law married. And that still achieves the same result. Legal recognition. So you have to accept there's a contradiction there, and you're working within a system based on imperfect rules. And that's what he's saying. And that's why everybody hates it, because the red pill guys hate it because, well, you're not sticking to the pure distilled thing of it. And the red pill women are hating it. It's like, well, you're adding those misogynist guys to our great little longhouse, and nobody's happy. So really, ultimately, you have to not give a fuck. Anyways, continuing on with this one. If there's a reason that the blue pill professor gets so frustrated, I think it's this. He feels like he represents the married red pill, yet as we're set up, he doesn't have the standing to actually be a thought leader. If we really cared about our external reputation, we'd have a lot of changes to our intake funnel so that we would stop having idiots who post stupid shit like this every day. And he makes a reference to a post of a guy talking about he would take a girl, if he had a one-night stand with her, he'd have her spend the night, and then the next morning he would crush Plan B bills into her orange juice and make her breakfast. Highly illegal. Do not do that. Do not do that. There is nothing good about a sexual strategy that puts your ass in prison. Heaven forbid if they have a reaction and you end up with a murder case on you. So don't do that. But he's like, yeah, that stuff's going to be there and you can't get rid of it. So you can't denounce it and you can't be a thought leader for that. So, because Hunter, Drew, can be the family alpha pope, blue pill professor cannot be the red pill pope. Nobody can. We're not set up that way. If we were, the married red pill pope could say things like, stop talking about anything that sounds like active dread or blah, 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 blah. But Hunter can say this if he cared to. Professor can't. If he or anybody else did, there would probably be a mass exodus because, like I said, this isn't that kind of community. And even if we agreed 100% with what the MRP Pope decrees, a lot of us would still bounce because who the fuck is here thinking they can act like the fucking Pope? In fact, this place not having a thought leader is why it was so appealing to begin with, because it makes it a great place to discuss and synthesize ideas with other people. Personally, I see it as a hobbyist club where everybody brings in their handmade furniture, model airplanes or whatever, and talk about what works best. And I say I think someone's model airplane looks like shit, but that's just my opinion, man. Some conventional wisdom will evolve from these hobbyist groups like the best brand of glue is X. But that's just our opinion, united by a loose consensus, and also valid to be questioned at any time. And this is all of my typical long-winded way of also agreeing that this shit is all pointless, but not because it has anything to do with a dueling sexual strategy. These people don't think we're losers because we somehow threaten their sexual strategy. They think we're losers because too many of our members act like fucking losers. It doesn't matter if they're few and far between, and all of our veteran people are very much not losers or individually condemn the losers. Like I said earlier, some people think Black Lives Matter are cop killers because too many of them kill cops. Some people think Muslims are terrorists because too many of them are terrorists. That's just going to be how it goes. So welcome to... There's a couple mental models to pull out of this. Like, welcome to the red pill. Ideally, it is. It's a very loose hobbyist place. You don't want any type of leadership to it because as soon as you have that, the goal then becomes a hierarchy. It's a red ocean, blue ocean thing. But ultimately, once you put somebody in charge, a group of those people will make their mission to extend on that hierarchy by appealing to that guy. And any one person is not going to have all the answers. So it just doesn't work. That's what the Good Man Project did. That's what most of the MRA types do. They always try to appeal to some like central authority, morality. And ultimately, that's how women structure these sort of relationship conversations anyway. Because then when you have a hierarchy, whoever's at the top of the hierarchy can dictate the morality of the group. That's not what we need here. It needs to be amoral. Anything's on the table so long as it's valid. You get illegal examples. We've considered that to be not valid because you can't be alpha in prison, you know? And you get a lot of hate for that. And it doesn't have to be bigger than this. It's just, yeah, if you put a space together, and don't get me wrong, this space is here for men who are struggling. Your marriage sucks. Your sex life sucks. Your divorce sucked. You may have been the best guy in the world, but right now you're a piece of shit. And so if you go to a space that's designed for piece of shit guys to start not being pieces of shit, you're going to be surrounded by pieces of shit. And don't kid yourself. A lot of those pieces of shit are only there because they want to have company. They don't want to improve. They don't want to fix. They sure as hell don't want to contribute. They just want to go into the He-Man Woman Haters Club and shit on women with a Red Bull. So once you accept that premise, you are going to be surrounded by losers. There is value here based on a loose consensus. Nothing is canon. Everything is up for debate, but it all has to be backed up by experience. As long as you accept those premises, there is a lot to gain from this space, man or woman. Problem is, women like to argue, men like to be validated, and none of this works if you buy into that. So again, with everything, frame. As long as you have frame, all of this will work. So hope you enjoyed that leisurely stroll down memory lane, and I, for one, do not miss it at all. Yeah, I'm not even going to read the rest. All right. I had forgot all about this. Hey, Null, 10 euro super chat. Hi, from Köln. What are y'all doing in European time? Well, I have a Patreon it too. And I am out of MidsWatch recording, so I got to record the last bunch of those to get those edited and put out. I just finished off my Orion channel video and got copyright striked, so it got taken down, and so we'll see. It's not true there is a president. Shut up, you nerds. All right. Alec Baldwin showed you the meaning of fuck around fine. Oh, for fuck's sakes, guys. So we're going to close that one out. I hope that got the point around across. The problem I have with these is they're so meandering. It's like I do my best to keep it on point. So we'll see how it works. Anyway, so if you listen to that, you understand kind of how and why people like me or Rule Zero Dad or Archwinger act the way we do, right? Every one of these arguments that everybody's having online right now, we've had them before. There are tons of them. We've been there, we've done that, we've gotten the trophy, and we realize, like, it really is useless. Don't argue with women online. Is it because you don't want to? Is it because you want to be heard? But they're never going to believe you. So like, why are you so worried about a reputation on some random person you're never going to meet? Stop wasting your fucking time. I might skip this next one though, because like, fuck, this guy's a mouthy. You know what? What I'll do? Let me just quickly scan, and I'll see if there's paragraphs I can just leave out. Because if I can cut this down to half, it'll actually be a digestible size. Maybe. Actually, hard to say. It's like every useful piece is like surrounded by BS, so I kind of have to go. You know what? Fuck it. You guys got anywhere else to be? Let's do it. Iceberg, €5 super chat before we get started. In frame, when you talk about having options from work and you do self-respect, is it about the tools you learn to use, like assertiveness? Well, I mean, assertiveness is one of the tools you learn, yeah. But it's more than that, right? It's, for example, if you have good boundary like the tools, if you have good boundary enforcement, you understand assertiveness, you reduce your nice guy behaviors, those all help. But at the same time, there's like the, alpha bucks, beta bucks stuff. There's being in good shape. There's being aloof, the dark triad, attractiveness stuff, because ultimately women respond to status. So if you start acting like higher value and you are higher value, then it tends to work out better along with the other tools. So you take everything together. Just think of it all like tools in a toolbox. And between all of them, you're going to build yourself options, because acting attractive, being attractive, and doing attractive things will ultimately attract people to you. And if you have 5 girls that are like, hey, what are you up to later? Sorry, ladies, I'm married. It makes it a lot easier to deal with a cunty wife, because you're like, dude, like, you don't have to say it because you don't want her validation from it, but you think it to yourself. I could replace her tomorrow with like a much hotter, bigger titty girl who's much more pleasant. Why am I putting up with her shit? And that's ultimately the kind of place you get when you understand your options. So once you have options, you don't have to put up with anything. You're not afraid of losing your wife. You can replace her very easily. You don't want her to be replaced. You probably don't want her to get rid of her. You just want her to suck less. And I'd argue for every divorce guy out there, every divorced or divorcing or about to divorce or sucky guy, if his wife just started acting better, he probably would let all of this stuff go and move on. That's ultimately what it is. Why is my wife such a bitch? Why is she yelling at the kids? Why won't she fuck me? Why is she a loser and an alcoholic? And it's either going to be a case where you make sure it's not you leading her to that shitty attitude because of your shitty behavior, or getting rid of your version of that shitty behavior because she won't change and you're going to have to replace her sooner rather than later. So does that answer your question? Raj wanted to start posting on the Patreon. Any best practices? Ultimately, it's just field reports, man. Here, I'll tell you what. Here, what we'll do. I'm going to break here. I'm getting better at speaking often without killing my voice, so I don't mind spending a little time here on this. Let me pull up what I'm looking for here, and I'll send it to you. Is it? Where do I view my goddamn page? I think it's this one. All right, so start with this. Thank you very much, sir. I like the shirt too. But ultimately, like, once you read through the field reports from the week, it'll be very easy for you to understand. And for the most part, everybody will have like a really bad first or second post. But then by the third one, we kind of go through that and we walk you through it. But generally speaking, that should be all you need to know. Okay, so what's the next one? Oh yeah, the hard work one. All right. I wish I had something pithy for this one. It's just a gong show of effort, but I mean, it's worth going through. So, welcome. It's the MidsWatch. We're on one of our last episodes. This one is a field report from a guy, Sad Bear. I think I did well, but it's hard work. So hopefully this can give some insight to the noobs as the things that can happen as you travel the early stages of the road. I actually kind of like these ones because they're very bad field reports, but it's not that they're bad because they're poorly done. They're bad because the guys are new. And this is kind of how the learning process works. So I love these work in progress ones. And yeah, they're harsh. And yeah, the guy makes obvious mistakes, but everybody will learn this way. And I would be really disheartened if somebody saw a 2-year in, well-polished field report and decided, well, mine aren't nearly that good, I might as well give up on this thing. It's like, relax. Everybody was here. And it's like I always say, if you can't go back 2 years ago and see your first field reports and cringe about how fucking weird you were, then you're not doing it right. That's how growth works. So he left work late. Wife was put out, arranged dinner. On the way home, he told her he's going to be home in 30 minutes. He arrived home to a nice steak dinner, red wine, chatted about the thing. That's, by the way, one of the things you're going to see about old field reports is it's mostly, they don't know the details that matter. They don't know what it is they're trying to accomplish. And so you mostly get just like a stream of consciousness description of everything in their day. I'm trying to skip all the superfluous details, but there is so much, it's hard. So if I end up rambling, you'll know that's why. It's not that I'm rambling, it's that the field report is rambling. So it kind of gives you an idea, like read between the lines, what is he going through here? He doesn't know, otherwise he'd be able to pinpoint it. Anyway, he's reading Married Man's Sex Life Primer, really enjoying it. The idea of surprise outings in the book caught his attention. The wife mentioned she really wanted to go back to some restaurant. And so he brings it up. She talks about having a work call the next day. He says, oh, that's too bad. Had a surprise for you tomorrow night. Oh, well. What's the surprise? He opened with a smile. Are you new to the concept of surprise? It doesn't matter. We'll do it later. She keeps pushing and offers to cancel the meeting if it's important. And he says, don't worry about it. So after the story, I make a big blunder. My wife needs comfort and attention, but I grab the iPad and start a game. She mentions a form of childcare she got today and wanted to show dates I could be available for, and mentioned a few days and gave yes, no to proper thing. She's talking about setting up play dates for their dating life. Essentially that. So he's thinking, oh, for fuck. Anyways, it's a bunch of like rambling neurotic mess, which really isn't important to the detail, so I'm going to skip past all of that. Here's how it ends, though. I angrily put down my iPad, go out the front door, take a 30-minute walk. It was nice. I saw some owls and bats, blah. So you see how these things go? It's the same as the Rambo story. He goes from zero to panicked. And all it was about was her asking what the surprise is to see if she needs to cancel a meeting so he can take her out to dinner. Excuse me. So he comes back, wife's cuddling with the boys, and they pop in, say hi dad. The wife doesn't say anything. We watch the Big Bang for a bit, and the boys get up to bed. I follow them, tuck them in, go back to the kitchen, start cleaning up. Wife cooks, I clean up. Wife goes upstairs, Then she comes down later to watch some TV with me, and he's like, oh, it's a comfort test. Then I realize she's still angry, and he thinks it's a concealed shit test. So insert more arguments and conversation about nothing but feelings. Him trying to take responsibility for her emotions. Him trying to fix things. Her emoting. Her hiding information from him. All that stuff. Skipping to the end of this. She followed me into bed, and after a few minutes, I realized I'm elevated breathing, and I didn't want my wife to think I had feelings. So I got up and went to the room where I'd have weights and did a 15-minute workout, then went to bed and went to sleep. Do you see the theme here? He ends up in some emotional situation, completely buckles, has a freak out moment, distances himself from the situation to calm down, and then goes back and engages. It's not the best, but as far as holding patterns go, he's understanding his limits here. I know what my limits are, and I know when he gets himself riled up, distance is the best thing. Shut the fuck up is a superpower. This is what I mean. Is this a bad strategy? Yes. Is it the best he has available to him? Also yes. So he got up in the morning, made coffee. Kids get up, wife comes in, grabs a coffee, goes to the shower. And then afterwards, she decides to greet him. Decides to give him the lovely kiss. An alarm clock. A blowy. So I'm going to skip past all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. He does mention it's also the second time he's ever had one from her. So take that for what it's worth. The rest is just awkward talk. So now she's happy. He's happy. He says goodbye, and he's like, oh, stuff's hard. What's the point of that part, though? It's an accidental game a lot of guys have, and it's where the second type of captain came in. You know, the constantly complaining passenger and the neurotic captain, type 2. Because it's not about positive emotions or negative emotions, just strong emotions. So if a girl has really heightened emotions around a guy, the ups and the downs, push and pull, it eventually leads to sexual desire. Comes at the tail end of anxiety. Now, this guy, through no result of his own action, all that distancing himself whenever he got emotional, get things riled up, and then leave, he accidentally was doing push and pull. And it worked out for him in this case. So he feels emotional, they have a bunch of fights, he wanders off. They get back together, they have a bunch of fights, he gets emotional, he wanders off. She doesn't see him getting emotional, so he's working in his favor there. But she's getting all these emotions too, and then she's being, blue-balled by not having a release on it. And then it ends up blowy in the shower. So it's not that he's good, he's just lucky. And then Jack chimes in. I guess, before we get there, so the point of this is guys learning how to do that deliberately. It's what I talk about when I talk about separating sex from intimacy. It's what I talk about push and pull, manufactured outrage. There's tons of mental models you can use, but ultimately it's a matter of purposefully being attractive as opposed to accidentally being extremely emotional, which has the unintended consequence of being attractive. So Jack chimes in. This is retarded. You were zoning out in front of a screen and your wife just wanted you to pay attention to some logistics issue. If you were doing something instructive with your time, except for playing dipshit Farm Mafia-ville clan, then this would have been a non-issue. My wife will ask, can you stop playing that and pay attention to me when I'm watching TV or whatever? When I'm getting shit done around the house or working on my hobbies, I get the, hey, did we send the check out for X? Oh, you're in the garage, never mind. So, girls, they know if what you're doing is important or not important, and they can gauge this. Anyways, your wife's frustration was due to a pattern of a lack of leadership of the house. She can't trust you to make good decisions for household logistics without your undivided attention, probably because you have a pattern of making shitty decisions even with your undivided attention. You don't need to tolerate her tone, but let's not act like her exasperation has no basis. If you're going to pull the whole, you're being a bitch conversation over, then I would suggest you time box it next time. Do this. And he brings up a story of look, I want you to get something from me. The time isn't good. Just give it 5 minutes. Let's cool down. And then blah, blah, blah. It's an easy way to maintain frame without rubbing your wife or anybody else's nose in it. In my example above, if I told my wife, I'm not discussing anything until you apologize for being a bitch, it would be a lot easier for people to enter your frame when you don't present it as a steel cage of submission. I mean, look what happened here. Your wife got short with you, and you turned into a 16-hour marathon shit test. Then you spent the whole night literally trying to avoid her, playing some bizarre game where you literally left any room she was in 4 times, and dropping heavy-duty statements like, I don't care if you're ever happy, which is all super-duper alpha and all. But how did we get here again? All because she snapped at you when you were fucking around playing Farmville. I used to think this was actually some kind of trolling attempt from some Blue Pill subreddit, but I know you have a long history in the Dead Bedroom subreddit, so there's a fine line between asserting yourself in your marriage and completely overreacting to your wife ever being anything less than pleasant. Save the whole, you disgust me so much that I don't even want to be around you for the moments they deserve, like if she ever emasculated you in front of friends. You'll find, in general, you can get your point across, assert your frame, without having to be nearly as confrontational so often. The only other thing I'd add is this. Handling something suboptimally and getting the desired result is still suboptimal. There's a saying in poker, don't confuse but misdirect. If you've ever played in a house poker game, there's usually some joker who plays randomly or going all in without looking at his cards or some shit like that. Yeah, he's hard to read, but that means enough times that you'll say, fuck it, I don't even know what he's doing, but I'll call, and then you'll see he has nothing and win. So consider that versus a player who's actually good at bluffing. They don't make you think, wow, this guy is random, he could have anything. They make you think, oh man, I totally know what this guy has, and then they have something else and you lose. So yeah, you were a confusing guy and your wife folded her hand and you got a nice blowjob out of it, so good on you. But she could have also escalated this confrontation because you kept avoiding her and pretending nothing was wrong, and that doesn't seem like a particularly strong frame to me. So when she said stop being angry, there were a lot of ways you could have responded that would have made you a misdirection guy and not a confusing guy. So the next time you refuse to show your hand and your wife doesn't fold like she did that time, do you have the cards to show what she called? Or are you holding a pair of nothing with a limp dick joker? Now it's a wordy way of explaining the exact same thing I just said. Exactly. He didn't get good, he got lucky. And examples like this do work, and that's the problem, is that if you're not self-aware enough to know when you're doing the emotional roller coaster thing, then you don't know how to replicate it. And ultimately, that's what everybody's trying to do here. And this ultimately comes through the game stuff we talk about, the dark triad capabilities, boundary enforcement, the various mental models, not being a nice guy, the assertiveness training. You put all of this stuff together, and granted, at first, you're going to have some false positives and false negatives. Sometimes you're doing everything right from a boundaries perspective, but your wife flies off the handle and it doesn't work. It's not a problem with the system. It's just a matter of, sometimes you got to stick it out. Like, all right, keep doing this a few more times. You'll eventually learn. Patience. Other times, you completely screw up. You're very emotional. You're very validation seeking. You fly off the handle. You lose your frame. You still get a blowy at the end of it. That's great. Now learn to do that deliberately. If you can do that on purpose, then that works much better. And don't worry about it. You're going to make mistakes. Nothing wrong with that. Just try not to make the same mistake twice. Trust me, the second time he does this, he's probably not going to get a blow in the shower. And keep in mind, I guess I'll end on this. This guy was in the dead bedroom community for like years. So for years, they were talking about high sex drives and low sex drives and frigid wives and coping strategies. He comes here 3 months later. He's gotten laid more than he has in the last 2 years. Just saying. So even when we're not good, we're fucking good. All right. Ross the Skunk, $5 super chat. Thank you very much, sir. Midsweek, Orion, Woot. By the way, where do you acquire those Hawaiian shirts? Well, this one I got on Vancouver Island. My girl picked it up for me. For the most part, it's just me keeping my eyes open when I'm out and about. And then as I see stuff that would be good for work, I just, hey, write that off. So yeah, this one was I think it's actually a vintage one. Like, I don't know how old it is, but it's fairly old. Which it looks like it was from a set of Saved by the Bell. Sorry, I got that one out of the way. What's the next one? But have more than I can chew, act too fast. You notice I'm getting all the small stuff first, so yeah. Yeah, seeing you get it, Iceberg. Massive need for calibration, and that's fine. Look, I have no problems with screwing up. Everybody, the way you learn is by screwing up and then fixing it. And screws up like this, I'm fine with that because he's making the effort, he's self-aware, and he will improve. In fact, he did improve. If you go back and look at some of his newer stuff, he was much better at focusing on what details mattered and which details didn't. He was able to be more deliberate with that. And I just laugh how 6 months with a bunch of nerds on our line with our thing can help a guy in like a 2-year dead bedroom. When everybody else, all these women and low T men were sitting there and it's like, oh, just think about your feelings, and still didn't get laid. Even when he screws up our advice, he gets blown in the shower. You can't buy stuff like that, right? So let me see this one. How bad is... Oh, for fuck's sakes, Jack. All right. So the guy's actually... The post isn't that bad, but... Text, kids up to school before dinner at night, back home, Mother's Day. Actually, that's not bad. Most of this stuff is quotes, so we can go through this one. All right, let's get this next one on the go. Oh, I haven't numbered any of these ones. I'm stupid. I have a system. I have a workflow, and if I don't number these properly, I lose track of what work is what. It costs so much effort. So pause here while I quickly do some typing. Entertainment. What are we on now? Where's my stupid things? So this one is final episode. Losers, that's 17. Which would make this one. Oh no, this one's 17, damn it. This one would be... See, I've already fucking screwed it up. Son of a bitch. Oh, the losers. Oh, it is 17. The one I just talked about was... 10. All right. So next one on the go. Did I butt off market 2? Act too fast. Let's do that one. Did I bite off more than I could chew? Did I act too fast? Yes, but don't worry about it. Welcome, it's MidsWatches, coming near the end. It's one of the last 7 or 8 episodes, and this guy, he's just started on his map, started on his field reports, and he's wondering, is he going a little too hardcore? Is he not calibrating properly? Is this too quick for his capabilities? You be the judge. So Wednesday, the guy's blue pill, 12-year marriage. He's got 2 kids, 5 and 7. The last 6 years have been maybe once or twice in total sex. Constant fighting, and he's miserable. Keep in mind, too, remember that for all the stuff you see on here. 6 years. Laid twice. In a marriage. With kids and a family. This is the nightmare scenario for guys. This is the quintessential example. So, he figured this place out on Thursday, bought the prerequisites, got 41% of the way through No More Mr. Nice Guy. And today, he's like, I'm going to start somewhere. Here's how it goes. Text my wife midday, say I need to pick up the kids from school so that I can buy groceries and get dinner. She says okay. Calls later while he's in the middle of cooking and asks if he can help pick up the kids. Oh, he needs her to pick up the kids. Right. He says, I can't, and she does it. I figure, is this a shit test? The kids are difficult to get out of school at the end of the day. They love it there. They're hungry and they're tired and they give each other a hard time. So before dinner, my youngest runs out of toilet paper, craps himself. He needs help wiping, so my wife does it with tissues and plugs the toilet. I don't remember what she told me or asked to unplug it, but I bought her a plunger and asked her to try first. She says no. I will tell her I'm not unplugging it. She unplugs it and then doesn't come to dinner for 40 minutes. We have recently been trying to make a dinner a special event for our family. It seems to be working for the kids as they're enjoying trying new foods. Dinner goes okay. We bathe the kids, tuck them in. As we're saying goodnight to the kids, I let her know I have to run to the store. It's after 8 and the stores I need to get to close at 9. Going shopping for groceries without a list, which she hates, and a present for her birthday that she doesn't know about. When I get back home, it's dark, the porch light's not on, and I know this is on purpose because she always leaves it on for me so I know how to get home. So she did this on purpose to mess with me. I ignore it. I assume it's a shit test. When I get to the kitchen, she says clean the kitchen. Now, most nights he does, and she helps at the end when she's doing the kids' lunches. I respond by telling her, don't talk to me like that, and tell her to clean the kitchen. I'm not doing it tonight. Then he leaves. She tells me for Mother's Day she would like to talk to a counselor or a lawyer. I tell her if she were to say, can you please clean the kitchen, that I would be happy to do it, even now. She says no, counselor or lawyer. So lots of other angry shit comes out, to which I feign indifference, and I'm like, you're not a friend, you're not a father, you're not an acquaintance. All this stuff would have had me going through the roof, freaking out on other days. In fact, if this was 2 days ago, I'd be cleaning the kitchen yelling right now. Instead, she's doing it while I type this. I feel like it escalated pretty fast, although she said crap like this plenty of times before. So should I have gone on being the little simpish bitch doing chore play while I read up on the prereqs and the wiki, etc.? There's an update, but I mean, nothing has changed. So Jack chimes in. Oh, by the way, let's do my take first. Let's do my takers. Yes and no. Yes, in that he did too much, in that he was trying to assert himself in a very ham-fisted way. He escalated unnecessarily, conflict, yada, yada, yada. Having said that, it's a start. He made an attempt to assert himself. If he can learn what mistakes he made and why, he can then make less mistakes the next time or no mistakes at all. In this case, it's not a case where he's a piece of shit dad and the girl's having to step up. It's a case he is a really good dad, but he's afraid of his wife, walking on eggshells, bed of nails, whatever metaphor you want to use. And ultimately, that's ruined his sex life, it's ruined his marriage, and now when he's starting to assert himself, of course she's going to push back. Of course she's going to push back. Whether he could have done a very perfect boundary enforcement, and she still would be the same cunty bitch who was always here. So, at this point, it's a starting place. So Jack chimes in, Jesus Christ, that was horrible. All right, so here's how this is going to work. I'm going to quote your post and respond with my thoughts. Words are not going to be kind. All right, blah, blah, blah. Brings up the marriage first off. It's like, this isn't even roommates and a best friends forever situation. This is an arranged co-parenting situation where you guys don't even like each other. Your marriage is already probably dead. In the past several years, I've doubt you've given your wife many reasons for her want to be married to you, and her the same. In other words, your value is way too low to be this confrontational this soon. You're going to be a bull in a china shop and wondering why your wife is annoyed at all the shattered porcelain. Brings up No More Mr. Nice Guy. So that is a book mainly about asserting boundaries. What you should have done is read the whole fucking book before you ran your mouth. Then you should have thought about the boundaries in your marriage and how you want them to change. It sounds like you have some problems with the boundaries around running your household. Well, you should have put together a plan on how you think the household should be run and then start enacting that plan one step at a time. Instead, you abruptly started demanding dramatic differences in how the household should be run with no plan and no vision. So to your wife, it just looks like you're dumping a bunch of shit on her lap. Depending on the foundation of your marriage before swallowing the red pill, you may have been able to do this with minimal disruption, but you definitely don't have that foundation now. And then it was the thing about the toilet paper, the plunger, and the wife plugging the toilet. This is so sad, it's hilarious. It's tissues in a toilet, dude. It's like 2 pumps with a plunger, assuming your son isn't shitting in a 19th century outhouse. If the Blue Pill subreddit made a comedy about their obviously misguided and correct perception of the red pill, this screenplay would be in that scene. As a silver lining, they'd probably want to cast Ben Stiller as the clueless beta husband whose wife has to unclog the toilet because he's too busy dicing tomatoes. Which, that's a bit harsh, but whatever. And then he talks about the shopping list, how she hates when he goes shopping without a list. She hates it because she doubts your competence. She thinks you're running the household and you can't possibly remember everything without her specifically outlining it. So she's taken the reins of captain, which she didn't even want to do, and then she's frustrated that you're so useless. I'd link to my dysfunctional captain post from a couple months ago, but linking to shit on Reddit is annoying. And you'd probably only read 41% of it. Next to the line where he's like, you can't talk to me like that. He's like, fucking hell, man. If you spent more than 5 minutes here, you would have learned about techniques like agree and amplify, muse mastery, and fogging. One of the easiest ways to deal with a compliance test like this is simple teasing. What's the magic word? If they act shitty in response, just keep teasing them. That was the magic word, but it's different now. Guess again. So that line about you're not a friend, you're not a father, you're not even an acquaintance. Shit talking between the wife and the husband. He's like, everybody else is probably going to be focused on this. And yeah, this is grade A bitch stuff for her to say. And look, maybe I'm wrong about everything. Maybe you make a 6-figure salary, you already hit the gym and you're ripped and jacked, and you already run a successful household, and you just happen to be married to an ungrateful, shrill, harpy bitch who fucked you once every 3 years despite all of that. Or maybe, you've been kind of useless as a husband and a father and a man, and she's already been entertaining the idea on how much easier it would be if she didn't have to deal with you as dead weight in her life. Now, neither of those extremes are likely true, but I can guess which side of the spectrum you're closer to. Actually, you know what? I'm going to pause there because there's like an important thing here. So here's the thing. This is why I always refer to Jack as the sober second thought. And it's easy for us to become the judge and King Solomon of this. Like, is she being a raging bitch or is he being a useless dad? And the argument, and basically it's yes. The answer is yes. To some extent, both of them are. But as a guy, you can only change your side of the equation and then hold boundaries against the other side. And that's why we don't really deal with like, just tell that bitch and hold that bitch accountable, because it doesn't fix anything. All it does is creates conflict. That's why Myron's an idiot. In this one, what he can do, are you useless? Fix all that. Well, what about her? We'll worry about her after. We can't change her. We can change you. But then once you have that foundation in place, you can either assert boundaries and then she won't act like a bitch to you, or you'll assert boundaries and she does act like a bitch to you and you kick her out in the curb. But either way, you're best positioned to take advantage of both situations. That's outcome independence. Outcome independence. Which it comes out here as in like, you're just useless twat. So the guy asks, like, should I have just continued to be that supplicative bitch? And he's like, at the risk of sounding controversial, yes. I think because you're not even a good beta male, you're not even the 100% provider, 0% lover, you're just useless. And yeah, you do some household stuff and you probably have some sort of job and you love your kids, you try to be a good father, but that's like a D+ husband performance. And yeah, it sucks to think, well, I bring home a paycheck and I do my share of household shit and I raise my kids as much as I can. Why is my wife a bitch? Because that's not enough. Your wife can bring home a paycheck and do shit around the house too. If you're making her unclog toilets, then what the fuck does she need you for? Husbands, at least here in the West, are supposed to have good jobs. They're supposed to run a household. They're supposed to own the things. They're protect and secure the family, maintaining fitness, all that stuff. That's a lot of work. And all we really want in return is for our wives to look pretty, be sexually available, and be kind. And most of the advice in here is built on the assumption that you've already accomplished all that. If you don't like that deal, get divorced, hang out with the guys on the red pill, and I wouldn't blame you. I think all of us would love to join you, but it is what it is. So he's like, yeah, read, lurk, focus more on improving your value, the passive stuff, the very first parts of dread, the working out, the shape, the diet, making sure your house is clean. Clean your room. Clean your room. Don't take Benzies. Until then, given the state of your marriage right now, I would not worry about asserting yourself until you've got your shit together. You shouldn't be beta, but if you focus too much on being the alpha male before you're ready, all you're going to do is spawn confrontations when you're not nearly able to maintain frame against them. The rest is just a reiteration from that, so we'll skip that bit, and then here. Look, if you've read this far, which I haven't, but he did, then I'm sure all the above sounds harsh, but I wouldn't have taken the time to write this if I didn't think there was a chance it would be helpful and you weren't completely beyond redemption. And this sentence I'm quoting here was to indicate that to me that you, despite all of your other ways you fucked up today, are still capable of getting it. And the line was, I know she doesn't like how the beta me never addressed her car safety stuff because you described not addressing her car safety as beta behavior. And it is. Your children should not be riding in a vehicle with bald tires and worn brakes. Yes, it's your wife's car, and you probably shouldn't have felt very motivated to help her, but that's irrelevant. Is your family better off with a serviced car or not? The answer is yes. So the answer is just get the fucking car serviced. So he's like, yeah, so I can see no matter what mistakes you make, like I see you're capable of understanding the things here. So stop worrying about shit tests. Take the car in, just walk home. It's a 30-minute walk. Something tells me your fitness could use the help anyway. Now, to sum all this stuff up, is this a messy field report? Absolutely. Is the guy in a complete state of disrepair to start? 2 bed sessions in 6 years. Think about that. Think about that level of misery. And the fact that this guy's able to hold it together as well as he did is nothing short of a miracle. Most guys love to imagine themselves pulling a Michael Douglas falling down after a 6-month dry spell. This guy's 6 years into it. Something to think about. Yeah, but they're going too fast. And arguably, the thing about going too fast, finish the sidebar first. Go through No More Mr. Nice Guy. Learn about being learning about holding boundaries. Go through When I Say No, I Feel Guilty. Learn about being assertive. Go through Practical Female Psychology. Go through The Rational Male. You get a basic fundamental understanding of why the blank slate theory is bullshit, and you can understand the nature of men and women. At the very least, enough of it to be able to formulate a plan. Make small progress or make big progress and jump in. It's all based on how quickly do you learn. If you find you're learning things quickly, break it and fix it. Move on. A lot of guys were hardcore that way. I was like that. A lot of guys are very slow. They need constant repetition to get there. And there's no shame in it. You will learn at the pace you learn. So just make sure when you're enforcing boundaries, make sure when you're avoiding nice guy stuff, validation seeking, wading into that little conflict zone because you're good at amuse mastery. Just don't bite off more than you can chew. And if you do, just keep that in mind. There's a word for it. It's calibration. All right. And that one is 9. Jesus. Where's my stupid thing? I'm back in chat. Just one sec, guys. I gotta. All right. How you doing since I've been gone? Ross the skunk. Make your wife plunge it. I've told my son if you plug it, you plunge it, and even show him enough. See, yeah, Ross, don't focus on that. Thank you for the super chat. But yeah, it's not about the plunger. Most of these stories, you have to really read between the lines. It's not about who plunges the toilet. It was about the wife giving a demand and the guy trying to assert himself, but doing it very ham-fistedly. It could have been any situation. And we can argue over, well, the right thing to do is this, or the easy thing is do with that. And that's fine. But if you're unable to enforce a boundary, if you're unable to be assertive, if you're unable to command respect from your wife because of this stuff, then all that stuff is irrelevant. Learning and then remembering. So much repetition. I've watched the sidebar stuff 3 times now. Yeah, I mean, we all learn at the pace we learn. Oh, what is the plan next apart from Ryan? You said in the past that the well is running dry. Well, I wouldn't say the well is running dry. I'm just saying the content I have planned over the last 5 years is almost done. But I guess we got some time. Okay, so the merch store is up and running. The 2024 merch store is going. I'll put the link here to this one. It's not official launch yet. Hold on a sec. Oh, not H. It's not an official launch yet. It's more of a soft launch because I like to get mine first. So I have to still. I'm doing my orders today for that, and they'll be in the next like couple days. And then I'll probably start pushing that one more. I'm actually really liking it. And then the idea is if and when that one takes off, I'm gonna move that to more like fun, stylish wear. I would love to be able to get Hawaiian shirts in there. It's very hard. What do I think of Royce? What do I have to think of Royce? I disagree with his interracial dating takes for obvious reasons. I like his work. Jumbotron Rule was fucking amazing. I don't think he's a big fan of me, though. Not that he even really cares. Also, he was a really shitty example of one of the first guys that got doxxed in this space for that Lady Rain chick. But here's the thing. That's what you got to stop getting in your head. What do you think of this guy? Do you like this guy? Do you like that guy? Who fucking cares? There's a lot of people I don't like that I get value from. You know? I have no idea. He disappeared wherever he is. Even Rolo hasn't been able to keep in touch with him, so. Is he oh, shut up. Is he a legend? Dude, I should ban you for that. That was the dumbest thing you've ever said. That was dumb. All right. So I guess the Go To Me bar, is this the, oh wait, is this the one with the suicide thing? No. Married friends. You know what? So I got two more one-offs. Guys with married friends and the go get me a drink of water shit test. Very disrespectful wife. Part of me wants to get into the Jack 10 fight. You know what? Let's get that big Jack 10 fight out of the way. Fuck it. Oh, this is gonna be a slog. Whatever. You guys don't pay me to sit here and like and subscribe. All right. I've been promising a punchline to the MidsWatch for years. This is the punchline. Welcome, guys. It's MidsWatch. It's Ryan. I'm probably going to try to make this one the last MidsWatch episode. It's going to be a longer one, though, because it builds... It's a giant meta conversation, a fundamental understanding of how the red pill works the way it does, how I do what I do, ultimately how you do what you do, and how you get it to work in your relationships, your marriages, or just your one-night stands, whatever. It's actually a 4 or 5 post thread. You're like, what? It's because there's some background to it. So it starts off with with a couple fairly controversial ideas. The first one is about a guy asking, hey, for guys whose wife's cheated on him, he stuck around, what's it like? And then the second one is about a guy who's got a completely unhinged wife, threatening all kinds of self-harm if he doesn't do what she wants, if he doesn't get back on the plantation. Followed up with that are a couple of my old, like my original essays on this stuff, which the amount of work it took to make me literate is amazing. I can't even read them anymore, but luckily it's not about me. It's more so about the discourse around it. So you don't have to hear me fumble my way through a horrible blog post that's disjointed as hell. So we'll start off. I've got it for the most part in a structured order, even though it's not quite in like in the order of sequence. And this is over a period of like a month. So this first guy's asking, hey, married guys, some of you decided to stay with your wife after you found out she cheated, maybe multiple times. Maybe it happened when you were, blue pill before you found this stuff, but no one's admitting it, at least from what I could find. I would love to hear a perspective from those who stayed and why and how's it working out. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there is another tall tale that I've been talking about here, and that's the guy, the ultimate cat. And everybody's always wondering, how does he get to the way he is? He's a very cattish guy. He was cheating on his wife, sleeping with everybody in the neighborhood, didn't trust her around the kids, didn't want a divorce except for on his terms. So here's his origin story. And this is why it sucks, because this is like the culmination of like 30 episodes of stuff that's like a piece here and a piece there. So yeah. So Ultimate Cat is like, you know what? I'm going to retell you my story, the abbreviated version. And I'm not sure why, but your plea for help is condescending and far from that of a humble man who wants to learn. So try politely asking instead of accusations the next time and see if you catch more flies with honey. About 5 years ago, I found a condom in my medicine chest. It wasn't mine, I accused her and was met with every lie in the book. Zero acceptance of responsibility, and I was just shamed because I didn't trust her. I had just started my dream job and I had very young kids at home, babies, toddlers. I was stressed out, a chubby loser, and who didn't see what option I had except for to suck it up and eat that. No hamster, just a rational decision that I had no cards to play. That's what I saw growing up. It's not an excuse, it's an explanation. An explanation of my weakness. And a couple years go by. It's a very typical marriage. Work, stress, raising kids, monthly sex that wasn't very good. I did not like my life very much. Then I accidentally found a Return of Kings article. Good wife, bad wife, something like that. The good wife seemed like an absolute fiction with her sweetness and compliance. The bad wife was literally my wife. I read more. I found the red pill. I began lifting, reading, holding frame, and posting under a different username. So with a bit of red pill knowledge, I hacked my wife's Gmail and read everything. She had maintained friendships with men, both orbiter losers and former boyfriends who wouldn't commit. Now I could never prove infidelity, but I had many lies exposed, and that was good enough for me. The bitter pill went down for good, and about 6 months later, I had finally shed my anger. By the way, he didn't. Oh, he so didn't, but he was residual anger. That's a whole other thing, right? Where'd I go? It turned out funny, as now I have the balls deep in married women and hearing about their emotional emo husbands, how they were needy and indecisive, jealous and controlling, and fat too. Read my top submissions for more detail. Some were heavily upvoted and had wonderful commentary. So my commitment to be faithful ended. Not that I shared this info with my wife. She is a fuckdoll babysitting plate to me. I kicked her ass back to work. I made it crystal clear that I'm just fine without her and I could replace her in 5 minutes, and she knows it's true. I'm good looking, I'm 6 foot tall, I'm 200 pounds and dressed sharp. I have a good job, my game is tight, and I also know I am worthless to the universe. My value is self-made. And this is where the fat bloopies lose their shit. My abused wife is now genuinely happy. She lost the baby weight. Now she looks good. She looks tiny again. She still shit tests me and tries hard to put me back in that beta box. But it's just not happening, and her respect for me is through the roof. 2 to 3 times a week we're screwing around. I could have more. She never refuses me now, but I found it's better when she's into it. And I have others I can call now too, so no one woman controls my sexual needs. She wanted a man she couldn't break. Well, I'm here now. And I'll say, and I'll stay until I don't want to anymore. Why rush? I like living in my house and I like having my kids around. It's not like I'm stupid enough to fall for any other woman ever again. I don't need women for anything but sex and breeding, and I'm done breeding. So, why do you ask? I gotta pause here. Like, everybody always wonders, what do you mean by the gynocentric social order? What do you mean by the feminine social imperative? This is technically, look, you don't have to like it, but you have to understand, this is a story about a man who got his life together. Like, nobody, when you heard the story of, like, finding the condoms in the thing, sucking up that his wife was cheating on him, you might feel sad, and one woman will be like, oh, that's so bad, that's so tragic. But then he stays together because he has no options, he's doing it for the family. And they'll be like, oh, that's sweet. You know what I mean? She's a cheating whore, she beats the guy up, he's not very attractive, he sucks it up. Oh, that's horrible. Then he decides, you know what? F it. He checks out of his marriage in all but legal status, goes and lives his life the way he wants to. Do you like it? No. Do I like it? No. Do I have to like it? He doesn't give a shit. He's living his life for him. This is why I've always liked his stuff. As much as we say the red pill is an amoral space, a lot of people like bullshit themselves into bringing their morals in here. The traditional conservative crap is just filled up at this place. He is the litmus test if you believe that this place can be an amoral sexual space. Because there's a lot, dude, he was probably one of the best sources of information here. If for no other reason, all the wives that he was sleeping around with, and he always slept with married women. His rule there is like, I want a woman that can keep her mouth shut and won't get attached. That's fair. But he's like, you guys maybe have one wife that's cheating. I've met 20. And here's everything you need to know and everything that she'll never tell you. And it was a treasure trove. I could argue at least 30% of Dread and Frame is due to his work. And he got all the right people mad at him. Anyway, so he and Jack are fighting again. My favorite, by the way, is the first comment from an old user. It doesn't really matter who he is. Like, this is it? This is the reason you're so controversial? Fucking no way. Tip my hat to you. And so it's like, and then Jack's like, you know what? The only controversial thing is that he projects his wife bullshit onto the entire female gender. His ego can't handle his wife's a shitty person. Blah, blah, blah. Anyways, there's a whole bunch of shit here, but it's all just point and sputter, which is weird coming from Jack. Like, you could tell it emotionally kicked into Jack because he just starts calling him Caddyshack and all kinds of weird stuff. So yeah, every single one of us has our moments when they tap into, when they hit us right in that little emotional trigger where we kind of go off. And it's one of the things I don't like about Jack is he was missing the self-awareness to notice when he was one of those guys. I'm gonna, other people are like, you know what, that financially that was a sound decision, that was a smart strategy, blah blah blah. And then he calls him a bundle of sticks. So we're going to skip to the part where it gets to our little fight. Where I'm like, oh yeah, you don't judge Cad. Then you sit here, my main beef with Cad, and then you proceed to judge him. He's like, which one is it? Blah, blah, blah this, blah, blah, blah that. You know what? All of this stuff is just fighting, infighting, emotional bickering. It's not really important. The reason I'm bringing it all up, though, is to get to the second part. Yeah, I don't think we need to read any of this stuff. Yeah, we're skip past that. All right. The next part is, my wife told me I'm horrible in bed and childish for feeling emasculated regarding these remarks. This is another post a couple weeks later, something like that. And these were like all of these, every one of these threads, if Cad said something or I said something, and it was the least bit unflattering to women or the most, or at all like dark, like do what you need to do, fuck the morality of it, Jack started having temper tantrums. This was another one. And you know what? I'm going to read it in the same way that I originally read it. And this guy's talking about his first post, browsing around, reading some stories about marriage. I appreciate the insight. My wife's on my lap. We're talking about things. Started to go sexual. Here's my issue. She mentioned she really wanted to try having sex with other girls when she was single. And it's one of her regrets right now. I said, I would be comfortable with that if I was part of the experience, like, a threesome. She's like, no. I want to sleep with her alone. And it would be easy to do because I can install an app like Tinder. And he goes through and you know how these conversations go. I've always wanted to get railed by it. Like, I'm not comfortable with that. Oh, you don't trust me? Anyways, the next morning, she didn't think anything of it. She's like, hey, is there anything wrong? And he kind of he did the one stupid thing he did. He opened up and told her what he was feeling. I'm feeling this. You're disrespectful that. I can't get the idea out of my head that you want to go be a lesbian instead of being with me. She turns it into a fight with him. Blah, blah, blah. I stopped reading at this point. I was like, same story everywhere. Look, everybody has their own Batman origin story. I 100% get that. Here's what you do with that, though. You still have the same work as everybody else. He had no boundaries, no assertiveness, no value, or she would be afraid to even bring that up with him. So work on that stuff and then worry about your specific bespoke situation. Now, Jack does the opposite. He looks at this. He gives a great narrative structure, a mental model to encapsulate the guy's entire path, as well as a way ahead and the things he's doing. Ultimately, we get to the same place just through very different methods. So I chime in. She said, I want to be with a girl alone. And I'm like, you know what? Wish her luck. Go work on your pathetic frame and your self-worth. I mean, I could read and comment on the rest of the stuff, but do we really need to? Like, she flat out told you she wants to fuck, not you. How much more of a direct signal do you need? Well, okay, there's a few more. And he's like, I love my wife, though. And I'm like, no, you don't. You're just scared of being alone. And she's like, I fear. And he's like, I fear that I'm being unreasonable and actually being pathetic, childish, selfish, and sexist. I'm like, you are, but not in the way you think. And the idea here was like, forget all this stuff. You have a bunch of very clear things to work on. Get on the sidebar. The same stuff I've been preaching for 10 years. Fix this stuff, and this thing will sort itself out one way or the other. So this is near the end of Jack's emotional things. He's like, you know what? Maybe you should have kept reading, because maybe if you did, you'd have seen this. And he goes in here. Anyways, after an hour, she called me back into the bedroom and revealed that she truly wants to die. Just go to sleep or whatever and die. She won't off herself because she feels like she'd be a coward. That's her words. But she's crying and saying she won't eat anything today or during the week. It's an attempt to get sick. She also sent me an article about self-deletion and tendencies, took 3 sleeping pills and asked me to read the article. Now she's sleeping on 3 Xanax and I'm completely lost at what to do. He's like, these are potentially the words of a wife with a profoundly mental distressed person exhibiting dysthymia, whatever the fuck. An incredible narcissist faking the above for manipulative purposes, or somebody nursing constant outward and inward hostility because she's married to someone of a different sexual orientation than she'd prefer. Look, can we please all say this extreme ownership stuff, while great at ripping out the feelings of entitlement, codependency, and self-pity that we've been preventing a lot of men from strengthening their weak frames can be taken too far? Marriages ultimately involve 2 agents with free will and self-determination. Anyways, he preaches a lot about this stuff. And yes, this guy wrote the most victim pukey thing I've ever seen, but this whole own your shit, do your thing, don't worry about what you think is useless for this guy. The right answer is, and we had a nurse that was one of the guys here, he was talking about like the prevention hotline, stuff like that. Then he brings up, well, there's a chance that she's actually just a lesbian who's not comfortable with this because they live in a country where they're not accepting of it. Your very standard, like, progressive thing, like, well, you need to be supportive of it. Which is funny because this was like before all that came out. This is like 2013. The rest is him just talking about what he should do. What you should do this, what you do that. I guess, and instead of reading like 20 minutes of just blather between the two of us, because these arguments all get the same way, it's mostly posturing, it's completely ridiculous. Here's the gist of it. Everybody, and this is one of the problems that the married red pill has always had, and most guys have, is that once it comes to a girl that has actual problems, guys are instantly like, they can't help themselves, but I can fix her. The conversation totally got spun into in a male sexual strategy forum of, well, what if she is a lesbian? What help could she get? The thing here's and everybody has to do that obligatory, here's the prevention hotline so they don't try to off themselves, which is more of like a liability statement anyway, as opposed to actual advice. Like, everybody knows about the hotline. You're saying that so that way nobody could say, look, you wanted them to off themselves. Like, no, I didn't. I gave the phone number. My job's done. And what I see in this is why modern relationship advice just sucks. Everybody now is worried about all the details that don't matter. This place had a very specific scope. Male sexual strategy, positive male identity. Whether his wife's a lesbian or suicidal, like, none of that fucking matters. None of it matters. That is completely out of scope. And even if it is applicable, we're a bunch of random nobodies on the internet. Do we really think we have the chops to like fix his wife's lesbianism one way or another? No. So why would you even wonder about what our position is? This place is here for sexual strategy. So here's the thing. He has no boundary. He has no boundaries. He has no ability to enforce himself. He has a wife that's sexually uninterested in him to the point which he'd rather go muff diving. Like, all of that stuff. Fix that stuff. Whatever this problem is with the lesbian and the sleep, and let's face, 3 sleeping pills. There is content creators that names rhyme with Mac Herfy that used to take like 3 Ambien with a bunch of booze just to go to bed. It's like, don't tell me it's like this was a legit attempt. But whatever, it's not the point of it. Everybody was so worried about going off topic, helping a woman. It's not the first time it happened either. Vampire Squid, the girl, and it's in the book about the case of the red wine. Same thing. Girl comes in, gives everybody a blast of shit because her husband used to be so sweet, now he's a prick, and everybody was jumping over themselves to help her out, help her understand, make her understand. We left Rule 0 so quickly, and that's why I'm always cognizant of that when you see people nowadays. Always keep Rule 0 in the back of your mind, because guys will drift. A lot of guys still pine for the day where women defer to them. They still pine for the day where they get the validation they're needing. They think that if I just give her the right amount of information, she'll understand what I'm saying and upvote my posts and everything will like, none of that matters. None of it matters. And this is where he starts getting frustrated. He's like, look, there is an offing themselves attempt and a potential LGBT. Like, we can fix this stuff. We are amazing. We are smart. I'm like, fuck off. I don't care. So that's second example of this. And they kind of culminate in Did I want to use this one too? No. So my posts, and I'm not going to talk about them now. They're long gone, and the first one was about turning off your brain, and the idea that the guys that just get it, they don't overthink things. The guys who don't know what they're doing, they love to overthink things because we develop narratives. Why am I so unattractive to my wife? Why am I this? Why am I that? A guy will build an entire Lord of the Rings trilogy in his head to explain his dead bedroom. Go to the dead bedroom subreddit. You'll see. They build up a vernacular, low libidos, high libidos, all kinds of like random terminology. And all of it is just designed to make them cope with the idea of not being attractive. Right? So my point is, stop overthinking this stuff. And then I'm like, I wrote like 5,000 words to get there, so I get it, but we can't all be Jesus, which, it's my attempt at humor. Jax looks at me, he's like, this is ridiculous, Ryan. And I'm not sure if anybody else realizes this, but you at least do. And he brings up, like, even you overthink this thing about not overthinking. So don't give me this shit. And all of us cool guys with our flair typically got it because we added insightful comments and offered useful deconstruction. I assume everybody here presenting this has enough spare cycles in their otherwise successful lives and their marriages to do that. So you telling people to stop thinking so much would suggest they are thinking too much regarding what they want. And then he brings up like, here's like 10 of your last posts where you're overthinking everything. I'm not trying to call you a hypocrite. I'm just pointing out for all intents and purposes, you did not simply shut off your brain, and it sounds like you spent a bunch of time reading, learning, analyzing, processing, acting, iterating, and then acting again. The shit we tell every guy here. If that sounds familiar, by the way, to an OODA loop, it absolutely is. Which was funny because I didn't find out about them for 5 years after this. But so what I think you're getting at is there is an uncanny valley that an otherwise intellectual person faces when they become more successful if they act less smart. In my own series of verbs above, they got stuck in the analyzing and processing stage and not enough on the acting iterating. But here's the thing, and here's why I'm coming out so strongly about this. I used to be one of those analysis paralysis types. I could have turned off my brain, but for me personally, that was the problem. Is that I would be overloaded with information, I would shut down my brain, make an impulsive decision, and that would cause more problems than it was worth. And I'll bet a lot of guys made that same problem. So yeah. And then the rest is him talking shit about me. So maybe he should think about that shit. I'm like, oh fuck. He brought up my situation with, oh man, there's a bunch of my old stuff here. I'm not going to get into that, whatever. All this to demonstrate thinking, so I might think more. You know what, that kind of gets to the end of it for this one. The rest is really off topic, so we're going to move. So that's number 3. And then we get to number 4, another post I had on a plea for irrational confidence. And it was another thing. So yeah, and here's the thing. He was absolutely right. You have to do a lot of thinking, a lot of reading, a lot of self-reflecting, but ultimately you have to add an equivalent amount of acting and reacting to it. Otherwise, all you're just doing is living in your head building fan fiction. So he absolutely nailed it, which I was too ham-fisted of a writer and I didn't understand it myself at the time. The difference between thinking and acting and self-reflecting, and you have to use them both. It's almost like a co-op program. And he understood that. And so when I was sitting here talking about stop acting so much, he goes, yeah, you're doing that because you were thinking and now you're acting and you assume nobody else should act. He's right. It's a very self-unaware statement for me, but I mean, in 8 years, we all grow and we all learn. And that's what I like. Even though we bicker, we back and forth, like that was a valuable statement. Even for a guy that I disagree with, even for a guy who disagrees with me, I don't think he liked me very much either. You can still get there. And you kind of need that. Again, amoral sexual strategy. How fun is that, right? So the next one was my plea for irrational confidence, and this came out right about the time that Trump was running. And it was essentially like, you know what? Just assume you've got it and work your best to get there. And that was it. Insert some more bickering and infighting and sniping, and then a bunch of people trying to get mommy and daddy to stop fighting. And Jack kind of has his moment of self-reflection. He goes, you know what? If I really had to guess, we both contribute a lot here. We both have a few, nope, this is wrong ideas, and here's some opposition to those ideas. I keep prompting you to play the devil's advocate, so maybe you'll come up with some grand unified theory of the red pill that ties the knot on all the fucking paradoxes that bother me, like kill your ego versus irrational confidence. To be fair, I'd like to think I did. So, yay. Buy Dread, buy Frame now, it's in bookstores. So when you've been here long enough, you notice it doesn't take much to influence the thematic ideas. 2014, we were all about frame. Frame this, frame that. What was hilarious is that we kept citing the very amorphous concept and barely anybody knew what the fuck it was. Even the guys that did know what it was, they couldn't quite explain it. And that's still the case, by the way. Which is why I think Dr. Seeger's come as close as ever. It's more of a metaphor. But the idea of frame being your way of understanding the world around you and acting in your own best interests, and even that doesn't do it justice. It's one of those things that once you have it, you get it. Not reacting, not overreacting, but doing it so deliberately, stuff like that. Anyways, Wine More Please had an anecdote about some kid who was broke and starving, so he just walked into a store, grabbed an orange, and walked out. Security guard glared at him, the kid glared back, and the guard did nothing. Makes sense. Assert your reality in that environment. But there wasn't much in that idea, and your comments like stop operating in your wife's frame. So then, somebody, I think it was Family Alpha Hunter again, told us to stop throwing around the word frame like candy. When your wife bitches at you, why aren't you pulling up Google Maps on your phone? You're going to miss the turn. We're going to get lost. When that happens and you stay calm and say, relax, I got it, that's not maintaining frame. That's just being stoic. Which is true. Stoicism and frame are not the same things. And we've had a bunch of good discussions on it, but for a while it was like the Pythagorean theorem. Blah, 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 triangle man, whatever. And then we were on a big stoicism kick for a while. Stoic this, stoic that. Except for some guys thought stoic meant respond to your wife with a deadpan monotone at all times. Learn to be kicked around like a punching bag without reacting. And this is the time that I started coining the term half autistic retard. I forgot about that too. Anyways, summer 2015, and now we're on this dread kick. You're not getting what you want from your wife? Dread. Still not getting it? More dread. Ultimately, dread's intellectual origins are from the red pill subreddit, which meant it was mostly just bullshit mind games. Flirt with cashiers in front of your wife, dozens of blowjobs to come. So we figured out that was ridiculous. And you just see distinctions now between active dread, passive dread, and I still refer to the professors I guess we'll refer to mine now, but yeah. Anyways, you get it. If you've bought the book, you get it. And then Hunter Drew brought us to the extreme ownership Will Jocknick era, which, by the way, died. Nothing came of it. It was just a bunch of noise. So now, early 2016, and now we're talking about AWALT, isn't AWATS. So all women are like that is no longer all women are the shit or that shit. And it sank in maybe that women weren't uniform automatons created by hive mind feminine imperatives, which was a surprisingly large intellectual leap. And AWALT isn't such a radical idea. If you're a loser and your wife would leave you, and fuck a loser. If you only bring your paycheck to a marriage, then you're still a loser, blah, blah, blah. And it's like the only immutable idea here is, do you even lift, bro? And it's, to be fair, the only thing that no matter what people agree or disagree on, lifting. It's the only thing we can all 100% agree on, which is why it's the fundamental thing. If you can do that, everything else is possible. Anyways, he goes, yeah, and I'm just doing all this shit because Ryan pissed me off. He called me, his name is Jack Ten of Hearts, and I called him a 7-2 offsuit, and he's like, I hate that poker reference. I'm like, all right, fair enough. And then we get to, where's the last one? Why did I lose it? Oh, no! I have to pause the recording for a second. Where's that last one? Maybe it's here. No. Son of a bitch. It's not that one. Definitely the Battle of Who Could Care Less, but that's not it either. Not that one. I had it open too. Where the hell did it go? It's not that one. It's not that one. It's not that one. Fuck. All right, whatever. We'll go without it. I got the gist of it anyway. To continue. So it finally culminates in the battle of who could care less. The battle of who could care less. So it was people had a chance to reflect on that guy whose wife tried to take sleeping pills and off herself. And they had their own kind of theory from this. So this train of thought was sponsored by a recent exchange between Jack and Ryan. Also, I'm piggybacking some of the comments from a lot of the other guys here. In one corner, and ultimately this gets to a fundamental understanding of how, like, what process works the best for the red pill, and you'll kind of get your own answer from it. So in one corner, we have the hardcore red pill guys. Think of them as your own personal drill sergeants. That's Wine More Please. That's Rule Zero Dad. That's the Ultimate CAD. Are you fucking up, Private? Because this is, fix all this stuff. And in the other corner, we have Dr. Freud himself, along with some real doctors. That was S-Curve Much. That was Jack Ten of Hearts. That was Irate MD. A lot of names. You may not know them. It doesn't really matter. And they want to peer into your soul, poke and prod around to find what they want. So in this recent exchange, the two sides sometimes seem at odds, but in practice, they're complementary. They each offer their own stepping stones to help men get up, to work on masculinity and blah, 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 because sometimes you need a kick in the ass, sometimes you need the guiding hand of a dad. So in short, welcome. Oh, I gotta edit that out. And he's like, yeah, so the nuance between guys like Jack and guys like Ryan is that they treat each post as a unique, individualized case, where guys like myself and Ryan treat the situation as more generalized. So for me, the individual manifestations of somebody's ego and insecurities don't override the root cause. Therefore, the root cause's diagnosis is effectively the same, and addressing the individual symptoms is a poor use of time. When Jack posts, he starts at the symptoms and distills it to a root cause. This means the method is more individualized, it also takes more time, and I think all the symptoms are bullshit would rather cut through it. I will say this though. Over the years, the guys who dealt with symptoms first and then got to the root of it, they're all gone. They all burnt out, left. The guys who dealt with just the core stuff and then didn't stress about the individual stuff, they're all still here. Rule Zero Dad's still here. One More Please is still here. I'm still here. So say what you want, but 8 years is a lot of staying power. And then I kind of comment, essentially to think they're the same thing. And for like the lesbian one from before, I'm like, you know what? That stuff's just out of scope. Do you really want us to opine on this stuff anyway? And then Jack's like, you know what? I'm Jack's humble pie. All right, I figured out why Daddy and Mommy were fighting. So we disagree on the premise. Ryan's saying all the details of situations are fucked up enough, and if the op is incapable of starting with the basics, then the details don't matter anyway. And I don't disagree with that. There's a victim puke and the guy gets the old ass kicking, I'll just click the upvote and move on. The main reason I jumped down his throat was because he had a sexually confused, suicidal wife in the comment, didn't even read the whole post, which meant it was completely unaddressed, which caused me to rant on that principle, saying, is it too hardcore if you don't even read the whole thing? Then I got annoyed, and you notice there's a lot of deering, and he goes, essentially my critique of him boils down to, can't you do better than that? And there we go. So most of it's just him reiterating the same thing with multiple examples, so I'm not going to waste everybody's time. So he goes, like, what's the scope of this place? And that question, it's not intended to be rhetorical, because I don't really know it myself sometimes. I do think getting an overall overview of this place is tough. So if we're still arguing about scope, it's because we're trying to figure out what that scope even is. You know, what's the best tool? What's the best this? And the result of this is we ended up coming and understanding, like, making Rule Zero the scope. That's, as long as it's male sexual strategy, positive male identity, it's all good. Because we had like a 6 month distraction talking about a lesbian wife and her need to eat sleeping pills by the handful and teach her husband a lesson, and he's a neurotic mess. And what's the point of it? It didn't solve anything. There's nothing from there that's useful. So yeah, the scope really did boil down to male sexual strategy, positive male identity. I have to pause it again. I want to make a final look. Like, it's got to be here. There's no... Oh, there it is. Oh, it's gonna be good. All right. All right. So the final bit of this stupid beef that nobody cares about is 8 years old. Fundamentally did change and alter the way the married or the red pill space had like designed itself and the ramifications we still feel today, which is awesome. It's just hilarious how like some of the most basic concepts like rule zero come out of just a bunch of internet nerds yelling at each other, calling each other cucks. I don't know why. It just makes me laugh. So it was another beef on some other example of guys, oh, well, the girl is really stressed this time, so we better change everything. So I'm like, I chime in and Jack, like, look, man, we disagree on a bunch, so I'm going to assume it's because of a trait we both have where we assume we're smarter than we actually are. I kind of like that about you, really. I deal with it by being a little self-deprecation, and you deal with it by being your own devil's advocate. I know Archwinger and Cad are regulars on this old subreddit they called Female Hate, which was just pure unadulterated misogyny. They loved it though, so I'm like, whatever. It's no different than you see like the fresh and fit shit now. So there was a fresh and fit back then. They just called it Female Hate. I've ended up in threads and comments in the friends queue. It's not productive, but they need to blow off steam, so I really don't care. Blah blah blah. Anyway, so Jack kind of cuts this all off. He's like, look, Ryan, I think it's cute that you think we're some sort of team of philosophical rivals. You may want to note that I don't view you nearly in the same light. Your views are mostly egocentric to the point of being intellectually childish. You cling to this married red pill Highlander mentality where anybody contradicting your ideas causes you to go full retard. Just like this thread. And you apparently believe there's some actual red pill canon, even though we've mocked that idea so often that even Frenchie parodies me for using that word so much. You take such pride in your hardcore red label, yet fail to realize what I say and other hardcore guys are mostly identical. Your advice in every single thread can be distilled with, have you tried being me? It worked for me. Which I assume is why you struggle with so much criticism in general. Any viewpoints different than yours. You literally are your advice. Ideas that may work for another man can be threatening to you, and even though practical, the impact to your life is zero. None of which I'd have a problem with, except for you really don't challenge my ideas directly. You say I'm wrong, often, which by the way, that's what eventually set this up. I called him the cold, sober second thought. Like, he might be wrong, but do you know why? And there's value in finding that. This is a cool thing. Even though you mean I disagree with you often, and you rarely raise those disagreements. Except, bizarrely, when it comes to any spat between me and the Ultimate Cad, where you don't hesitate to launch yourself to his defense. Your desire to jump on Cad's dick is no secret, but I'm glad to see you embrace it. Your projection is that we're some sort of yin and yang that led to a grudging mutual respect was amusing, but I don't care anymore. And I just said okay. Okay. Which was funny because after that he was like, I'm being an idiot. So that was a bunch of like nonsense, right? Okay, killed this, by the way. No more arguments. Everything was great at that point. Because it's fundamentally, I kind of want you guys to understand something here. And I know it sounds like I'm like, wasn't this great? It's not what I'm getting at. These fights are all ego. All of them. Jack didn't like it when I said he was wrong on a lot of stuff, but his value was in you being able to understand why he was wrong and use your own thinking. My problem with Jack is that he wasted so much time on people, like most of the guys he gave advice to that I've been talking about in the last 100 episodes, they were just one-off posters. They never came back. It was a completely, like there was so much work that other guys could have used that were still sticking around there. He didn't spend any time on them. He wasted it. Pearls before swine. And all these fights are usually just, they always boil down to some like more moralizing point and sputter. But that was really, I would say, I don't know if it's the first time, but I'm going to call it that for, rhetorical effect here. It was the first time that we realized that our actions outside of the marriage reflect how we're able to apply the red pill within our marriage. What the hell does that mean? Well, holding frame. It's what I had just said was all of this stuff. And this is the punchline I've been telling you guys about for forever now. Jack didn't know what he was doing any more than the rest of us did. None of us knew. I've been sitting here at him for like hours telling you about his wise thing here, his wise thing here. And now I'm here telling you, knowing full well that I knew this at the start. He had no idea what he was doing. It's up to you. It's up to you to discern. Does this make sense? And it matters in so many things. When your wife is shitting on you because you didn't take out the garbage or you didn't pick up the kids from daycare. Yeah, is she being a bitch to you and yelling at you? Maybe. You're supposed to take a second, take a beat, think. Does she have a point? If the answer is yes, well then address the thing. If she doesn't have a point, then she's just being emotional and you just disregard it. And that's where that K is. That's what that K is. He accused me of being my ideas. Have you tried being me? It worked for me. And I actually thought about it. I'm like, is he right? Am I just being like a big egotistical dick on this one and assuming whatever I'm doing is the path? No, not really. Nah, not at all. So yeah, I'm like, all right, fine. If that's what you think. And it didn't bother. It truly didn't bother me. Because it was exactly what it was meant to do. It's meant to make me think. This person labeled a critique on me. Do they have a point? Am I self-aware enough to know if they have a point? Arguably, I said yes to both. And, it's been 8 years. You tell me. Am I still the guy telling you to be like me at work for me or not? I don't know. And this is what I kind of want other guys to do. Their own self-revelations like this, right? Was Jack mad at Cad because he was cheating on his wife? Yes. Was all of his intellectual arguments about it based on his emotional knee-jerk reaction to that, being mean to that girl? Yes. Did he completely ignore that the girl was absolutely a horrid wife to him up until the point where he turned into a horrible husband, at which point, for some reason, she had the right amount of neuroticism to where that made her the best wife ever. Once she had the husband that was sleeping with every girl in the neighborhood, she turned into the Stepford wife. I don't understand it. It worked for him. Great. I'm going to learn from as much as I can. So yeah, this is the punchline. You guys have been watching The Married Red Pill for years. And here's the punchline. Don't worry about any of it. If you can apply it in your life, if it makes sense to you, if it jives with the things you already know work, absolutely adopt it. But there is no thought leaders. There is no wisdom. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all just guessing, A/B testing our own lives and swapping notes. So if you take no other lesson from this, there is no savior. Jack's just a dude. And Rule Zero Dad and I were talking about this too lately. We're like, the more we read his stuff, the more we realize I don't think he fucked at all. Maybe. I'm not buying Bugattis. So yeah. I don't want you guys to take this either as and I'll end with this. I don't want you guys to take this as some kind of did he just bait and switch us? Did he just lie to us this whole time? No. I brought you on a journey. I brought you on a journey where you get to start thinking for yourself and then crush your idols. So now you're truly on your own. You're on your own. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to Jack. Don't listen to Rolo. Don't listen to any of us. Listen to what works. Don't worry about the people. Just focus on the ideas. If you're watching the White Claw Power Hour, fucking stop. If you're watching Red Pill talk about Trump or whatever, just stop. Does this help you in your life? And it's been about 8 years since this stuff came out. 8 years. The sidebar is still there. It's still going strong. It's been replicated 8 years ago. It's been replicated now. The people we were talking about back then, the ones who are here are here. Hunter Drew mostly disappeared. His ideas mostly gone. CAD stuff still here. Jack stuff only here because I brought it. And there's value to it. But just understand that. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll catch you on the next one. Oh no, there is no next one. I think this is going to be the last episode. So yeah, I hope you learned. I forgot. Oh, okay, yeah. So there's the joke. There's the joke, guys. 2 years for this punchline. None of us know what the fuck we're doing, and that's okay, because that doesn't matter. Best sphere of beef that didn't involve MLD. It wasn't even about the beef. I just want you guys to remember this. Nobody knows what the fuck they're doing. We're all just dudes. We're all guessing. I've had the same stupid internet arguments that Myron has with the fucking horse on White Claw Power Hour. I'm over it. I thought I was a guru. I know, RZD. Can you believe this shit? I hope it wasn't too wordy though. But yeah, I honestly, I like that. I think it's going to be a great ending to the series when you realize that it's all just bullshit. But it works, which is good enough. Everything I say, everything Jack says, we're probably wrong. We might be wrong, but do you know why we're wrong? And if you don't know, why don't you know? It lets you know exactly what you have to do. If your wife's yelling at you, it's some good whiplash. Actually, that's a good reference. Reminds me of the top level in Scientology. Is that the one where they bring you in? It's like, it's just a grift, bro. So yeah, hope you learned from it. I learned from it. Honestly, I loved it. Like every time he was shitting on me, I took a beat. Did he have a point? And if he had a point, I made an effort to rectify the situation. I like to think it worked off. I mean, it worked well for me. Financially, sexually, all that stuff worked great. Was he wrong? Large percentage of the time he was wrong. Did the guys know I was wrong? No. But when they started doing work, they started figuring it out. So yeah, I guess there's some biblical parable about killing your heroes or something. I don't know what it is. I'm not that smart. Let me think. Do I want to deal with these last two? All right. Feels like watching the last episode of the show. It will be. I problem is I have two more here, and I don't know if I want to really do them though. Do I need to? I mean, you know what? It's two pieces of content. Why not? It's gonna be weird now. You're gonna watch like an episode. Like these aren't the last episodes. Yeah, they're not, but we'll get there. So let me label this one. We'll just call it M last. I don't know why that really does make me happy. Walter White died at the end? No! So yeah, Chesty, you let me know. You were there for all this stuff too. Do you think I summed it up rather well? Do you think I'm missing something important on that? Your input's probably the only input that's going to matter at this point for this, but let me just main event. Actually, I think I've already done this one, so I'm going to skip that. But the go-to bar, places card all the time. Yeah, the go-to bar for me for the shit test. This one will work. So yeah, now we're going to leave. Well, I should have done this before the last one, but I was just so excited. Sometimes your wife is just a... Yeah, I'm not going to say it. We have to wait. It's YouTube. It's MidsWatch. We're coming near the end. I think this is like one of the second to last episodes, somewhere around there. Anyways, this one, old one, it's just the go-to the bar for me test. It's interesting because like sometimes it's guys don't know how to assert themselves. They have low value. Sometimes the wife is absolutely ridiculous. So in this case, it's the go to the bar for me shit test. Not a biggie, but one Friday, the old lady pulled out one of her favorite shit test put downs, and I thought I would see like how do I process this? We're playing on a quiz night with a team of other couples, and the old lady finishes her drink and chirps up with, "Right, boy, seeing as you're not coming up with any answers, go make yourself useful, go to the bar and bring me a drink." I looked at her, I smiled, and shook my head in a that's not happening kind of way. Now I could have said, "Oh, but I'm coming up with answers. I got one anagram and about this thing," or I could have said, "Don't be such a bitch. Ask me nicely and I might." But ultimately, I knew all of that was a waste of time, so I just said no. I could see it made the atmosphere very awkward in our social group with no one knowing what to say for about 20 seconds. And then she got up and went to the bar and grabbed her drink. Nothing further said. She plays this card all the time in public. I used to think the chivalrous thing to do was to go get her a drink, the man's job. And these days, I think she's just fucking with me. Anyways, it's a regular one for me. Like, what am I doing here? And Jack Ten of Hearts chimes in with a pretty clear breakdown of this one. So there's two issues here. One is marital expectations. If it's raining and we're going somewhere with the kids, my wife will expect me to drop her and the kids off at the theater while I park and run in, that way they don't get the rain. But she always asks, even if the expectation is there. I'm happy to do it because she does things I ask, even though the expectation is there. Can you drop us off here so we don't have to get in the rain? Always gets a yes because, for example, the "can you make me a snack" will always get a yes from her. The subtlety here is that these are always spoken as favors, which by definition is asking somebody for something and giving nothing in return. Asking, "Can you do me a favor?" is saying, "Are you willing to do something that clearly benefits me more than you because you like me and I'm shown I'm willing to do things that clearly benefit you more than me?" Healthy friendships, healthy relationships all have this good dynamic here, not because they are kind enough to do each other favors, but because they have the same definition of favors. For example, sex. not a favor. My wife doesn't want to have sex that night. Cool. No sex then. Fuck it. If I'm going to let her associate sex with something that she's only doing out of some misguided attempt to make me happy, I have no interest in that kind of sex. Which is funny because he agrees with Kat on this, even though they hate each other. But long story. So if you come here with a long period of entitled whining to your wife about sex, this probably explains her aversion to you over time. It's like asking her to give you a ride to the airport every week. Does she want to do that? No. She saw sex with you as a favor, something she was doing out of altruism, and then became resentful when you wouldn't shut the fuck up about how many few airport rides she's giving you. Any wonder why she has no interest in taking a trip now? Sex aside, if your wife expects chivalry in the vein of traditional marital values, then I would say any responses are dependent on whether she's holding herself to the same standard. Not a good combination if she's an entitled modern woman who thinks it's sexist for a man to even suggest his wife slap some cold cuts in between bread on her behalf, but expects him to be a courteous gentleman. Put that aside. As far as the other issue, it's been well addressed, but I thought I'd chirp in on a few results. I think your problem here is how to handle the specific situation, in that your wife has a tendency to say some shitty things among friends and mixed company more often than is ideal, aka more than 0 times. So here's what you do. Savor that awkwardness. I say don't even shake your head next time. Just stare neutrally for those awkward 10 seconds. To an outside observer, you want them thinking this. Well, he heard what she said, but how's he going to react? I really have no idea. It is awkward. Your wife said something really shitty in mixed company, and it made things really awkward. Not just for you, but for everybody. She said something shitty, and everybody feels awkward. She knows it, and it's probably why she did this. She couldn't stand the awkwardness, and she correctly assumed everybody was thinking, geez, that was mean-spirited and not even witty, because that's really the rational response to somebody emasculating their spouse in public. Now, there's a gray area between teasing and emasculating, and thus amusing and awkward. Some people can navigate this well, usually in proportion to how humorless their formative years were. If your wife is someone who used to trade jokes and barbs with her family, especially her dad, she'll probably have a keen sense of what's playful teasing and what's just being a bitch at your expense. And if your cold British wife has cold British parents, not surprising that she sucks at this. So the way you kill this behavior is to savor the awkwardness. Think about a baseball bat or a baseball batter who drives away from a pitch thrown way too inside and almost hits him. He almost gets up, dusts himself off, glares at the pitcher. That glare says, you aren't skilled enough to throw inside pitches with the precision you need, so you should probably stop doing that because someone will get hurt, and it may not just be me. The pitcher doesn't fall over himself apologizing. He probably just stares back, but what happens? The catcher calls for an outside pitch, and the pitcher's more than willing to throw it because he knows the batter is right. He effectively goes to the bar and gets a drink for your wife, or the way your wife does. So you're not playing baseball, so it's not an apples-to-apples analogy, but you get the idea. Don't glare, just look at her neutrally, let the awkward moment last, then with the slightest smirk or all the amused mastery you can muster, just say, you want to try that again? And if she rephases what she says in a much less shitty way, then let her. And everybody else you're with, everybody gets off the hook at this awkward moment. Oh yeah, sure. If she sticks to her guns or is completely clueless, then just think, this other response is perfect. Withdrawal from the group, and that just forces her to stew even longer in that awkward moment. Because here's the secret. Nobody wants to be that guy who made a joke that went too far, and that goes for women too. And they're even more keenly perceptive about these awkward moments because this kind of covert communication is how they normally communicate anyway. It probably won't be long before your wife realizes that these inside pitches do get someone hurt, and surprisingly enough, it's not actually you. So, I mean, I like this one. It's not a broad category. It's more of a specific thing, but it's these little social cues. Ian Ironwood does a little bit of them when he talks about the male and female social matrices. But sometimes the case, if just the woman being a bitch like that, is to just let her have her social consequences. And yeah, because nothing goes right. Like if you start just yelling if your wife acts like a bitch to you in public and you just start yelling at her, slamming the table, people now get freaked out because you're some angry, violent man. Never works out well. If you don't believe me, how many of you guys have been single, went to a bar, some girl starts fucking freaking out, throwing her drink at you or whatever, and then the bouncers look over at you like you're supposed to start some shit. all of a sudden just cold cocking the girl does not end well for you. Now everybody has an excuse to treat you as the bad guy. It's what's that saying they used to use? Where you keep beating the dog until he bites you, then you have an excuse to put the dog down. That's the female strategy here. Alternatively, it's actually happened to me before. I remember that. Some girl, I remember what she did. She threw a drink at me or something. The bouncer started looking at me. And I just stand there and I'm staring at him. I'm staring at her. And I'm like, and I'm pointing at her. I'm like, are you going to do your fucking job? Bouncer kind of snapped out of it, realized, oh, this guy's not some alpha male trying to fight me. And he kicked the girl out of the bar. So sometimes it really is just a case of learning to read the room and playing social cues and understand there's a bit of a dance there. So I hope if you're not good at this, or if you are good at this and you wanted some ideas, that this little example can help you. Because there's thousands of these. And that's the problem, is you cannot make like an example for every time this happens. There's an unfathomable amount of little social cues like this. And ultimately, you just have to learn how to read the room and play it almost intuitively. You have to learn through practice. So if you can get there, get there. And if not, well, sucks being autistic. All right. Fuck it. I'm done. No more fucking MidsWatch. I don't want to see this again. I don't want to hear this again. Fuck you guys. I'm out. What episode was that one? M19. Fuck it. Oh, it feels good. Would someone tell Ryan it's not Saturday morning? It's not. Reminds me of the top level in Scientology. Jack didn't fuck. Okay, guys, don't forget women trash talk as much as men do. Well, that's not trash talking. Trash talking is banter. That'd be closer to teasing. That was just a socially awkward mess. Be like you being out on dinner talking about, yeah, my wife gives the worst blowjobs, and then just watches all the wives stare at you like, what a fucking monster. Yeah, so there. Hope you learned a lot from this. This is 10 years of subreddit multi-thousand guy beefs and lessons and things we could all get. Ross the Skunk, $2 super chat. Next season, Morning Watch. Maybe I'll go back to do some Manosphere mornings. A lot of people tend to like those ones, even though problem is they were satire. So I was satirizing those idiots like Ribby the Frog and whoever that just like, see, women are bad, and they watch TikToks, but I'm like, why don't I give it all the panache of like a mixture of a Miller Lite commercial and a morning show? So we'll see. But everybody kind of like started liking it unironically, which is either I did a really good job or a really bad job to get you there. I hate the Manosphere mornings. It's just diarrhea. Well, yeah, it's not going to please everybody. So we'll see. Anyways, that's all I got. That's it. I have Patreon coming up in 40 minutes, so we'll get in there. Talk to you guys soon.